Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is set to be one of the craziest MCU installments to date. It's already one of the most heavily anticipated, that's for sure. Since being officially announced at San Diego Comic-Con, fans have been speculating like crazy over what this upcoming film could entail. They're saying it's going to be Marvel's first foray into a horror film.
Oh my God!
Or at least something similarly spooky. At the very least, it'll give us a bit of insight into the whole premise of the multiverse, which was glossed over in Avengers Endgame and teased but barely touched upon in Spider-Man Far From Home. It's a dense subject that requires a ton of explanation, so fans are eager to learn as much as possible about this mysterious subway system through alternate realities. One potential reality that the good doctor might stumble upon could be full of zombies.
I see dead people.
Yep, you heard that right. No, this isn't The Walking Dead. We're talking about brainless, flesh-eating creatures, only they're superheroes. You know, like with superpowers? That's a terrifying thought. If we take a look back at the comic book source material, there's actually quite a bit of precedence for Marvel zombies. This isn't just one of those random theories that you see on some of those other YouTube channels where they just like to toss around trending keywords just to get you to click. No. This is a very real possibility. Marvel Zombies is a real thing. It was originally published in December of 2005 and ran until April 2006 as a 5-issue limited series. Funny enough, it was written by Robert Kirkman, notorious for being the creator of The Walking Dead. So there really isn't anyone more qualified to write entertaining zombie content, right? The story is set in an alternate universe, where the world's superhero population has been infected with a virus that turns them into zombies. It derived from a crossover story arc called The Ultimate Fantastic Four, where a zombie version of Reed Richards tricked his Ultimate counterpart into opening a portal to the zombie universe. If the upcoming Multiverse of Madness movie is to be a deep dive into the multiverse, then this version of reality is definitely a destination that Doctor Strange could find himself in. Within the Marvel comic book universe, the zombie world exists on Earth 2149. The story begins with an unknown superhero from another dimension brought to Earth by the Hunger. No, that's not the feeling you get at 1 a.m. when you go to the fridge for a handful of grated cheese. That's the term for when a zombie needs to feast on some delicious, delicious flesh. The unknown hero crash lands on Earth and quickly infects the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and several other heroes with this virus. The infection is spread through the blood of the victim, usually through a bite by an infected person. The infected individual, or the zombie superhero if you will, usually retains most of their intellect, their personality, and their superpowers, only they're completely obsessed and driven by the hunger for human flesh. So, it's not exactly like all the zombie movies you've seen in the past where they're literally just mindless drones stumbling around aimlessly. In this universe, the heroes are still somewhat themselves, only with a major appetite for person. In fact, just as The Walking Dead appears to be wrapped up and over with, Marvel announced that they're bringing back their Undead series. In a recent Twitter announcement, the company gave a sneak peek at the cover, illustrated by Inyuk Lee. The artwork shows a zombie version of Captain America, Deadpool, and Wolverine. The book is expected to be released in October later this year. While it certainly is a fun comic book story arc, Marvel Zombies has yet to be featured on the big screen. This upcoming Doctor Strange sequel may very well change that. Since the film will deal with the multiverse, a trip over to Earth 2149 would actually make a lot of sense. We were expecting to get a bit more detail about the multiverse in Spider-Man Far From Home, but that turned out to be a big hoax. I guess that's what you gotta expect when you're dealing with that scoundrel Mysterio. We actually did get a teeny tiny glimpse at a zombie in that movie, when Mysterio used his trickery to display Tony Stark as an undead creature to freak out Peter Parker. It may not have been a zombie per se, but it certainly could have been Marvel's way of planting the seed and getting audiences ready for what's to come. It may have just been a hologram, but it certainly was spooky, and it certainly prepared us to see our favorite heroes in, not such great shape. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is expected to be released on May 7th of 2021, and as mentioned earlier, it stands to be Marvel's first horror movie.
And we're going to make the first scary MCU film.
Yes!
While it may not be a flat-out horror movie to a T, it will apparently go for a horror-esque type of vibe with heavy gothic tones taken from the comics. In fact, director Scott Derrickson said at the presentation that the film will see Benedict Cumberbatch explore a bevy of dark and damaging places. This means that he'll likely travel to a number of different dimensions within the multiverse and encounter several troubling realities. Heck, it doesn't really get scarier than zombie superheroes. The movie will also feature a lot of Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Elizabeth Olsen is reprising her role and will likely accompany Doctor Strange throughout his adventures in the multiverse. She's getting her own Disney Plus series titled WandaVision, which is set to be released prior to this movie. And this timeline actually makes a lot of sense for the character's story arc. WandaVision will most likely be a depressingly delusional depiction of Wanda's life with her husband Vision. After all, she has the power to shape reality, so she may just go full-blown crazy and live life in a fantasy land where her husband wasn't viciously eliminated by Thanos in front of her very eyes. I'd be willing to wager that WandaVision ends with the Scarlet Witch having to come to terms with the impeccable grief of her reality. She certainly won't be in a good place or at her most stable once that happens. It'll be a major factor in the Doctor Strange movie as he helps her deal with her pain and tries to save the rest of the world in the process, because who knows what sort of reality-altering nonsense she might get up to while she's going through such a tough time. In the comics, this was actually the basis of the House of M storyline, where Wanda kinda loses her mind and goes rogue, and it's Doctor Strange who attempts to talk some sense into her. The upcoming film could be a fun little amalgamation of several popular comic book storylines, all told through the lens of a Doctor Strange film that sees him jump from timeline to timeline. Imagine trying to explain that concept to someone who's never heard of any of this stuff. It would be completely impossible. The first Doctor Strange movie made almost $700 million at the box office, so it was a no-brainer to go ahead with a sequel. Fans were confident that it would happen, but only recently did they confirm it as a real guarantee. Movie star and human otter Benedict Cumberbatch was quoted as saying, quote, "I'm really excited to be at the dawn of this project, and I think it's vital to maintain the humor we had in the first one, but with this twist of horror that will really have people gripped." Director Scott Derrickson has publicly shown his excitement for making Marvel's first, quote, scary movie. Although MCU head honcho Kevin Feige made sure to reiterate that it'll be PG-13 and not a full-fledged R, though. Then again, they are making another Deadpool installment, and rumor has it that the now Disney-owned asset will continue to be R-rated, so who knows what sort of envelopes they're willing to push over at Disney. Also, where did that saying come from? Who pushes an envelope? That literally means nothing. So who can we expect to see in undead form? There are a slew of heroes that would be absolutely terrifying as zombies. It would definitely tug at the heartstrings if they bring back Tony Stark or Black Widow. They both famously passed away in Avengers Endgame, but when you're dealing with alternate realities, and especially alternate realities involving undead zombies, you really never know. Deadpool would be an interesting one as well. I mean, for starters, the rights to the character was recently acquired by Disney from Fox, meaning he can make his official debut in the MCU anytime now. This would be a crazy way for them to introduce the character. Also, isn't he sort of, already undead? Isn't that his whole thing, that he can't die?
And that is why Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is pure pornography.
So logistically, it would make no sense for Deadpool to be a zombie, right? I mean, I'm sure Marvel could make up some sort of complicated excuse to explain it that I would totally eat right up and believe. It would also be pretty nuts to see a zombie Hulk. I mean, the guy is already an uncontrollable monster. Compound that with an intense hunger for human flesh, and I could foresee that causing some serious issues.
And Hulk.
Eat all the humans.
A zombie Scarlet Witch is also a terrifying thought, seeing as how she's one of the most powerful beings in the universe and can shape reality however she wants. If the Marvel zombies keep their powers, then a zombie with that level of power can mean disaster. Which hero do you think would make for the scariest zombie?